my shirt?
Oh, no. Yeah. We don't want to. Yeah, let's not. I don't want to get fired either.
Y'all listened in the class when y'all handed in your quiz that was the summary of one of the chapters of the quilt book. One of you didn't put your name on it.
The one says PC.
But some of you didn't give it to me, so I can't figure out whose it is. Check with me after class and we can get that straightened out.
You ready? Okay. Hey y'all, my name's Aubree. I'm an ag comm major. I did my summer 2018 internship at a small ag business sort of near us in Irwinville. It's called Custom Yard Power and Equipment, and I'm here to explain and discuss what I did. Like I said, the business is called Custom Yard Power and Equipment. The owner is Jeff Lott. It's located in Irwinville, Georgia, which is about, depending on how fast you drive, 20, 30 minutes north of us. They do lawnmower repairs and other lawn equipment like weed eaters, blowers, such as that. And they also are dealers. They sell. Brands that are sold there are Grasshopper, Toro, and Echo. And you won't see a lot of Toro because with my internship, I actually helped them apply, and they're now Toro dealers. So we just became that last week. And I'm saying we because they offered me a job to continue working there. My goals for this summer were centered around marketing and my future careers. The first one is I wanted to be able to improve my marketing strategies and efforts to bring more business in. With the marketing strategies that I improve and learn, I wanted to be able to use those skills and experience in marketing when I graduate. I wanted to create impactful and interesting social media content for the business, make at least 2 professional connections for future jobs, and I also wanted to expand my knowledge on what it's like to run a business along with finances and clerical work. That way I can just broaden my trades for when I get into ag comm degrees or ag comm jobs with my degree. My job, after I found the problem, which I'll talk about next, was to market and advertise. I wanted to put the business name out there because of the amount of people that didn't know about it from changing locations. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on too. But sales and customer service, I did just like any other place does customer service. When customers came in, I helped their needs. I sold them things. I told them where things were at. And then I also assisted the showroom manager and the parts manager by putting equipment up on the shelves, putting parts into QuickBooks, which is the software that we use for our parts as far as updating inventory and inventory coming out. And yeah. The problem that I found was they changed locations 3 years ago. They went from one side of the county on Osceola Fitzgerald Highway to Georgia Highway 32 West in Irwinville. So a lot of people just thought that they upped and left and no one knew where they went. And the business is a small business. They only have 2 employees, so they did not have the time to, or really they didn't have the means or the ways to market this place, and they didn't know how. So my job was to come in and to get people out there knowing who they were again and where they went. And I presented them solutions, and they accepted them. And these are the solutions. The first thing that I offered them was to make a Facebook page. They had a Facebook page about 5 years ago. It kind of died. Nobody was keeping up with it. So I created a new one because they couldn't even get into their old Facebook page. And we felt that Facebook is the best social media to fit our audience because our audience is 18 adults, 18 to 65, give or take, men and women. And with Facebook, we feel like with marketing, like giveaways and products, giveaways for our products we just felt like more people were on Facebook because, on Facebook, you see sponsored ads a lot. So that goes down here to the boosting posts. But anyways, one of the ways that I got our audience to grow on Facebook were the giveaways. We did T-shirt giveaways, lawnmower service giveaways, and a cake giveaway. With the T-shirt giveaway, I told everybody if they liked and shared our page, I had an Excel spreadsheet, and they got a name, and every time they shared or liked it, they got a number, and I did a number generator. And at the end of the week, whichever week I chose, they became a winner. And one tidbit of information that I found pretty cool was with the cake giveaway, that was our huge giveaway. We went from 111 likes to over 300 likes. Janice Ray, she's up from where the owner is from and a lot of his family's at. She actually liked this page, and I was ecstatic when I saw it. I was like, oh my gosh, I know her from Dr. Giles' class. But and with the boosting post, Facebook offers this really neat way to market businesses, and you choose your budget. It can be from $1 to $400. However much you pay, that's how much Facebook sponsors and markets on people's news feeds. So our budget for 1 month, the month of June, was $4, and over 20,000 people. It shows you each day and like the weeks and the days of the week. Like the weekends were when we were the highest. I guess that's when people were mostly on Facebook scrolling. So we had 20,000 views on that one post in just 1 month for just $4. So our next goal is to make an Instagram for these, like the equipment that we sell. You know, 'cause I feel like Instagram is more for pictures people can see, and Facebook's more likely for our information. And we're also going to up our budget to $10. So hopefully we might get like 40 and 50,000 people to view our post. Another thing that I did to market custom power equipment is the billboards. When I would present this idea to them, they were shocked because they didn't think that I would be interested in going through the work. Because it doesn't seem like a lot of hard work, but it kind of is, because you have to find the right company, talk about their prices, talk about the different contracts. You know, I chose BPS Outdoor Media out of Tifton and Wizard Media out of Fitzgerald, and they both gave business incentives. Like if you extended your contract in 24 months, you got 1 free month's rent, or they pay for the vinyl, and the vinyl itself can be between $400 and $900. So that was a good thing that, you know, I found them and they were willing to do that. And like Grasshopper, this is the lawnmower. I don't know if y'all have heard. There's a lot in Tifton. ABAC actually uses Grasshopper. Their corporate office, I had to contact each corporate office and get permission to use their logos, use their templates, you know, just discuss co-op money. So I had to talk to their marketing agents a lot, and I actually found one thing I learned to use in the future was that you want as little information as possible on the billboards, but a lot of content. So it needs to have just enough information so they can know how to contact you and where to contact you. So I think that'll be good in the future if I'm ever a marketing agent. When I'm trying to find billboards and places to put billboards, I'll be able to know that, you know, that's what people are looking for. Because you don't want to go down a highway or an interstate and see a paragraph, because you ain't going to be able to read it. You're going 65, 70 miles an hour. And this is a close-up. This one's going into Osceola. I'm not sure if any of y'all are familiar with that, but Irwinville, like I said, the main counties around there are Tifton, Osceola, Fitzgerald, Ashburn. So this is going into Osceola, coming from Douglas on East 32. And this one's in Fitzgerald, near the hospital in the middle of town, headed out of town, going towards Irwinville. So, one other thing that I did was, like I said, the showroom. I helped in the showroom. We put up weed eaters, blowers, blades, parts, and me personally, when I went in there, another problem that I saw was it was kind of cluttery, and it wasn't customers or patrons couldn't navigate very well. So I wanted to take it upon myself after I got slowed down with the billboards and the Facebook page to set this showroom up in a more categorized, beneficial way for the customer. So anytime we got new weed eaters in, I put them up on the wall, and they've ranged from prices, like they start at $199, $299, they go on, and I had to change the price cards, because a lot of people, if you come in there and they say there's an old price and it was $189, but then they upgraded their equipment, it was $199, they're going to get ill with you when you're like, oh no, it's not $189, it's $199, because then they're going to say that's false advertising. So I felt like that was a problem, and luckily we hadn't ran into that, but you don't ever know. So I changed and updated the price cards for 2018 and 19 prices. And like I said, I organized the equipment to fit the showroom best for the company. And last but not least, with my opportunity that ABAC gives to do the internship and that custom power equipment allow me to do, patrons that came in saw what I did, and they were surprised. That young people in Osceola, Fitzgerald, Irwinville, they don't usually get opportunities like this, and they were proud and they were grateful that I did stuff like this, and they advised me to contact places like this. Fitzgerald Utilities is in Fitzgerald, Farm Bureau, that's in Osceola, it's an insurance agency, Lassiter and Irwin-Williams are both in Osceola. And they told me to get in touch with people that they knew that they had connections to, for me to maybe email and maybe get job, shadow opportunities, another internship opportunities, and future job opportunities. So for when I graduate, I'll be able to use what I've learned with all my classes here at ABAC and with this internship experience to get a job when I graduate ABAC with my AgCom degree. Thank you.
Any questions?
So you said that offered you a job. What was your job title be there?
I'm still doing marketing, and I'm actually the bookkeeper now because they lost their bookkeeper, and I helped the bookkeeper a lot when she was there. So I just took over her job. So now I'm doing marketing and advertising, and I'm also keeping their books, their ag records.
Other questions? Well, can you talk about which particular classes that you had that prepared you?
Yes. With the Facebook and the content, when I went to type, most of these posts were about a paragraph and a half long. So there were a lot of times that I learned in like my English classes, even Miss Harrison's class, where like you don't need to repeat yourself. I'm not the business. Customer power and equipment's the business. And then when I would say we or they, when I read it before I posted it, I would realize people aren't gonna know who we is. We as in the company, we as the corporations, Echo Grasshopper. So that's, the English plays a lot into that. And then I'm actually in a class now, which doesn't really count, but since I'm still doing it, and ag records and ag marketing obviously has helped a lot. So I feel like, so now that I'm getting into my bachelor classes that have to do with ag and ag business, that's really helped me a lot. But all the English is and in the human communications, stuff like speaking to people, speaking to customers in a professional, timely manner, I think those classes have really helped me a lot.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so my name is Jeremy McCoy. I'm a history and government student here at ABAC, and this summer I had the opportunity to intern with Flowers Bakery. When I told most people that I was interning with a bakery over the summer, I'm pretty sure, oh goodness, my clicker fell asleep. There we go. I'm pretty sure this is what they imagined when I told them that I worked at a bakery, because the questions I got about things like that were crazy, because I worked in the environmental protection department with the bakery, and they asked me, what does a bakery have anything to do with the environment? And while I wish I worked at a bakery like this, because that looks really, really good, the bakery I worked at was more like this. They are big bakeries. Flowers in particular is a big bakery, not just in the size of their bakeries themselves, but in the scope of the bakeries also. The company is headquartered out of Thomasville, Georgia, but they have bakeries all over the country. They have 3 separate bakeries alone in the metro Atlanta area. I worked at one of them. But they also have bakeries as far up northeast as Philadelphia and Maine, and also as far west as Texas. So you may know them from their brands. They do Nature's Own, Wonder Bread, Sunbeam, Tasty Cakes, Mrs. Freshly's. They also do a bunch of other contract work. I know for sure that they provide all of the In-N-Outs in Texas with their hamburger buns, which an interesting story came from that, if you want to ask about that later, from over the summer. I primarily focused on 3 separate bakeries. There's the bakery that was in Tucker, Georgia, which is literally a stone's throw outside of the city limits of Atlanta, as well as 2 bakeries in Tennessee, one in Crossville and one in Cleveland, both pretty small towns in Tennessee. So what exactly did I do? Well, I had three major goals for the summer. One was the water project I worked on. Now, this was supposed to be kind of a more simple project, and it turned into a much bigger project once I started working on it. But I also really wanted to learn about the intersection that's between public policy and the people that are actually being regulated by this policy. So seeing from the side of a company what happens when you create a policy and say you have to stick to this. And there's a lot of things that go into that, as well as learning what makes the regulation itself tick, because as much as you want it to be what it says on the paper, small things have to happen to get a give and take for things to work together. So this is the end product of my summer, is this beautiful thing right here. This is a spreadsheet. The problem that they wanted me to look into was that they found that a few of their bakeries were paying a little bit too much for their water, more specifically for the sewage that they had with their water. And that's because, like, if you're at your house and you have water coming in, you pay for as much water coming in for sewage going out. But a big bakery like this, most of that water goes out through the steam when they're cooking, or goes into the ingredients, ends up in the product that you get. And some bakeries can get up to about 75% efficiency of the water they use that they don't actually send back as sewage to the city. And so they wanted me to create a spreadsheet so that they could help investigate these plants and find it out. The problem was that once I started digging deeper into the plant's actual water bills, there was a lot more going on than just that. There was tons of things that involved these small town governments themselves that created some just weird oddities that were happening here and there, and stories that were unfolding as I'm just trying to figure out how I'm supposed to do something that's supposed to take me 2 weeks and move on to something else. So I had some challenges. First of all, I didn't have a computer for about a month. It took them a while to get it to me because they are very serious about their cybersecurity, and as such, they had to completely start a fresh computer, and I had a computer sitting in my office the entire month that I was not allowed to use. I had to get my own. And then I only got a phone about 2 weeks left before I was done with my internship. So it was definitely an interesting experience in that sense, because all of the data that I needed was online, and that was it. There was no physical records of it because they're moving to the 21st century, and that can be good sometimes, and sometimes it's not. So part of the ways I had to get around this was I had to basically set up a blueprints for this project before I even got into it, which is why I was hoping it would only take me a couple weeks, because I was like, oh, it's going to be simple. I'm going to look through these water bills. I'm going to put the information in. We're going to figure out what the problem is and say, okay, this plant needs to do this. But of course, the fourth challenge right there, dealing with the understaffed and overworked local departments. As I started actually looking at these water bills, I realized two things. One, there was no uniform way of doing water bills or any other kind of policy or anything like that. Like in college, it's beat over our head. You do Times New Roman, 12-point font, double spaced. Like, you have to do it a certain way. These were just a mishmash of everything. Like, some water bills used gallons, some water bills used thousands of gallons, some water bills used liters, and they didn't actually completely label everything. You had to find it all out on your own. And sometimes they weren't even consistent from month to month within the same departments. The plant in Crossville, Tennessee, I learned, I was looking at it, and they had separate water bills for each of the meters that they had of water coming in. And one of the meters, they charged sewage, one of the meters they didn't. I had no clue what was going on. And so I have to, and this is where the art of professional writing comes in, I had to get in contact with the environmental manager at that plant. I had to write up this big email, and he comes back with a story. I'm sitting here, I write this email, it takes me, all day to make sure everything is right. I'm worried about it, and I send it, and I get an email back within 15 minutes that was just a real quick thing of, oh yeah, some guy had a handshake agreement way back in the 90s when they put this in, and that's why it's like that. And so it was definitely one of these things where there was a lot going on that I had to uncover. And through that, I learned that federalism is hard, because you want to take these things, you want to give it to all the states and all these local communities, but most of these local communities don't have the resources necessary to deal with a plant that is the largest functioning plant for an entire company that is a national bakery corporation. The plant in Crossville is their biggest moneymaker. It's not the biggest plant square foot wise, but it is working almost 24/7. It has now 6 different lines that are running almost all day, every day. The problem that the city of Crossville had was that that when they're cleaning these things, because you have to clean the equipment between uses because of allergies and things like that, they would wash flour and other things like that down the drain. This was getting into the pipes. And the city of Crossville did not have the money or the technology to be cleaning that water up. So they actually had to make a deal with the plant. The plant had to build their own and run their own water treatment plant that it passed through before it ever got to the city. But even then that caused issues because they didn't have place on the land where the actual plant was. They had to build it down the road. And they actually had a pipe break right outside of a McDonald's, and it was like it had been dry for weeks, and the McDonald's was almost flooded from all this water that was coming out because where the pipe bent, there was buildup of material. In Cleveland, Tennessee, I actually got to visit both the plants in Crossville and Cleveland, and the week before I went to Cleveland, Tennessee, there was a church down the street that flooded. And the water people had found a material in there and they weren't sure what it was. And so when we got there on that day, the water department for the city of Cleveland was outside of the plant and running cameras to try to figure out what was in the water. And then it was a whole day of walking around with the environmental manager as they're trying to figure out where water is coming from at different points in the plant and finding things out. Like the plant found out they had a problem where people apparently had been taking like refuse, actual snack cakes and things like that you're supposed to take because of for quality reasons aren't fine, and just were jamming them down the drain, and they had a big clog of them from one of their pipes that was heading into the actual water. They also figured out, because the building was so old, that the plans they had for the actual where the water was coming from in the plant had several pipes that they had no clue even existed. So there was a lot of stuff going on, and of course the city doesn't have the resources to go and investigate and say, look, you have to do this, and that. They were just trying to figure out why the church flooded, because they were trying to figure out who was at fault, because yet again, they don't have the money to pay to fix the church completely. That's the other thing, is small town governments need all of the help they can get. Even though they ended up finding out that Flowers was not at fault for the flooding of the church, my boss and the environmental manager of the plant were already having conversations about how they could possibly help give them that money that they would need to fix the church. And it's these handshake agreements, and it's because they may have been doing some things that were over tolerance that they would be having to pay fines for. But the manager for the city of Cleveland didn't want to have to charge them that, and they didn't want to have to pay it, and it's beneficial to both sides. And so these handshake agreements are big time important. They're annoying because there's no paper trail, but they're what allows everything to function nicely. And then the third thing I learned is the industry can be messy. I never expected a bakery to pollute a lot, but they do. Bakeries in big cities have to have oxidizers, because when they bake the bread, all the water comes out in the air. It's hot. It has too much liquid in it, so they have to burn all that off, as well as the water issue. One of the materials they use is called palm oil, and the thing about palm oil is that below about 90 degrees, it's solid as a rock, and it's almost instantaneous once it gets below that point. And so when they have a tank, they have to build a complete containment area, because if the palm oil is hot enough that it can seep into the groundwater before actually becoming solid, it can get stuck down there. And so there's so much stuff that goes on you wouldn't expect it. And so it's not just these factories burning coal and pumping things purposely. There's even small things can cause problems. And with all the little minutia that's going on, it is really a burden on these smaller towns. And then also in the case of the plant in Tucker, they weren't necessarily a small town, but they were a town for the first time. They had only been an unincorporated area within DeKalb County, and they had finally voted in to become a town, and so this was their first year of dealing with this, and that was when many of the issues that they had at that plant happened, because there was now talking going between the plant in DeKalb County, the plant in the city of Tucker. There was a lot of stuff going on. In fact, when I was doing my investigation for theirs, I found out that they hadn't been paying sewage until May of 2017, and in the year between May of 2017 and May of this year, they had paid $100,000 more than they probably should have for their sewage. And they had no clue that it had really been happening. So there's definitely a lot of things that can happen with you know, that you don't see and that kind of mess with the cogs of the machine. You want it to be perfect, but it can't be perfect until you go through and say, okay, where is this pitfall going to happen? At the end of the day, I think it was a really great experience. I personally know that I don't necessarily want to work in the industry side of things. I would rather be on the actual regulation side of things, but I know now, like, how these relationships have to work. It's not just saying this is a law, follow it. There's small things you have to do along the way once it happens. That's why, you know, the executive branch is such an important.
What kind of, where's my I'm just being hot when I feel like it. But what sort of regulations were they beholden to?
So one of the things, I don't know if it actually showed on, I can go back to the slide that had the spreadsheet on it. Okay, so one of the things that they had that was big for them was is a metric known as BOD, and that's the amount of organic solids that are in the water. And so flour counts as this. And the issue with that is that if you have like a river and too many organic solids happen into it, you can get nitrogen and things like that, and then you get growth that ends up killing everything that's in the river. And so they have to keep track of that. Depending on where the plant is, depends on the regulation. Like the plant that is in downtown Atlanta has to worry about everything. They have like 15 different metrics they have to keep track of, including air quality and all this other kind of stuff. But like the plant in Cleveland, Tennessee, they just want to make sure that the water is cleanable by them. They don't want something that's going to be too expensive for them to clean before they either, you know, send it back out for reclamation or send it back out into the river.
Can you tell us about the thing you're talking about in Texas?
Oh, okay. So in Texas, over the summer, In-N-Out closed. All of the In-N-Outs in Texas closed out of nowhere. And nobody was really sure why. They were trying to figure out, and it ended up being for like almost a week. And the problem was they said they had bad buns. And so apparently what had happened was Flowers is the producer for all of their buns. And they had gotten yeast from a producer that wasn't very good. And most of the bread they make, they have to like ferment the dough before they actually cook it. And because this yeast was bad, it usually what happens is once you cook the dough, that fermentation stops, but it had continued. So it wasn't dangerous, but it was putting off a smell. In fact, it was so bad that Flowers completely dropped their multi-million-dollar contract with that yeast supplier, and every single bakery that had any yeast whatsoever, even if it wasn't from the bad batch of yeast from that supplier, had to dump it. They were really serious about it because it was a big time gaffe. Like it's like a big company like that having every single like store almost for a week just closed. So yeah, it was pretty nuts. It was definitely an interesting thing.
How did you come across this, I guess, this internship? Like, how did you take it and find out?
I actually kind of lucked into it a little bit. My dad worked for a company that does commercial roofing, and his boss was actually friends with somebody that was, you know, he was family friends with somebody from Thomasville that was, you know, integral into like the beginnings of Flowers Bakery. And so, so they do like pretty much all the roofing work for like non-metal roofs for them. And so he got to know some people, and through those connections, I was able to meet the environmental manager for the entire corporate. And I got to talk with him a little bit, and that was when the opportunity kind of came up. It was just through talking with that connection. And I mean, I think I had like a 20-minute conversation with him before I ever got the first offer. So, yeah, it was definitely interesting. It was something I was actually kind of excited about just talking to him beforehand. So
I'll ask you the same question. What classes did you take that prepared you for this?
Well, definitely professional writing. That was nice. It was definitely weird because, you know, sometimes you'd send an email to somebody and it was official, and so they'd be official back. But then you'd also see them communicating, like my boss, and I was CC'd on the email, and they were just as chill as possible. And sometimes people just didn't care, and they would just respond, you know, laid back to an email that was official. And it was kind of trying to figure out what that relationship was, because text communication is so hard, and that was the only communication I had because I didn't have a phone until literally 2 weeks before. And so other than meeting a few people face to face, through email was the only way I could communicate. And then also the public finance administration class I took with Fitzgerald, that was really helpful because it kind of gave an insight of what are these communities having to look at and deal with? Because I mean, they're not only also having to deal with this issue that flowers is causing. They also have to deal with the other issues that are going on in town, the roads. They have to deal with the hospital and all this other kind of stuff. And honestly, they don't have the resources to deal with something so big, and it becomes a problem. And when you look at a corporation and you know they're having these same problems and only kind of figuring them out, and they have the intern go do it, you know, it shows how much they have, you know, like wise to actually take care of this stuff. So if you're not actually looking for it, then this kind of stuff can slip under the radar for a while, and it can cause lots of problems down the line. So.